here with Representative Renea Jones out of Unicoi County. This is your freshman year. How are you finding it so far?
Oh my goodness, it's just so exciting. You go back to swearing in day and just standing there in that room and knowing all the history that came before me and all the folks that stood there and took their oath of office. It was very emotional and very historical all at the same time. So I'm excited to be here, glad to be here, and looking forward to working for the constituents of District 4.
And what prompted you to run for office?
So I have been on the school board for 12 years, served as Tennessee School Board Association president, advocated for agriculture and small businesses most of my life. And it just seemed that every time I was moving here, advocating for someone, whether it be here or DC, the one thing that I kept resonating with me is I could talk all day, I could share my story all day, but I didn't get to vote. And I guess one day I just realized, hey, if you ever decide to run, you could vote. And the opportunity came available to do that with Representative Holsclaw running for a county office, and so that left this seat vacant. And the timing in my life was good. We had just sold our farm, so it was a good time for me to step into this role. I was raised on a farm. My dad started it. We were in business for 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite the family legacy there.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
In farming and being in a community like that, a rural community, what value do you think that you having those experiences brings to this position where you're representing that district that is pretty rural, and I'm sure there's lots of farming?
Yes, ma'am. So one thing that my dad always brought me up, and my mom, my parents, they taught me, the value of hard work, and the value of being kind to others, and so a lot of times, your community will look to the farmers because they're usually folks that have common sense, and they're folks that have worked hard to get where they are, and they provide a product that feeds our nation. So I think that just traditionally, farmers have been very strongholds in their communities. So I think that the things that I learned from my parents being raised on a farm will actually serve me well here, as well as just things that I've learned when I went to NC State and got my degree in agriculture and my master's also. And, one thing I learned being a female back then, it was, I was a minority for sure. I think in my grad class, the year I was in grad, and I think there was 2 females, and I was one of them. So
slim pickings.
yes, exactly. So I learned the value of persistence, determination, and just your persevering, because it was not always an easy road, and you had to. I can remember sitting in the floor of one of my major advisors' hallway because I wanted an internship, and so he had given it away and had already given it away, and finally he said one day, if I find a way to hire you, will you leave? And I said, yes, sir. And so I finally got the internship. But I think it's just that those times that we just have to be persistent, and especially when we know something's right, and we have to persevere to get it done. So that's why I chose to run.
We just got through a special session, so not only is this your freshman year, but you just got thrown right into the deep end with a special session before anything really even got the chance to get started. And so that was on illegal immigration and disaster relief for East Tennessee, which is, your area.
Yes, ma'am.
And then also the Governor's Education Freedom Scholarship Act.
So first we'll just talk a little bit about the disaster. I was blessed to serve on that committee, and that was that need was very prevalent, and we needed those dollars to help our community recover. So I'm very grateful for the folks that served on that committee and for our legislative body for passing that relief effort. Moving on to the voucher bill, it was very difficult for me because coming from the school board, we have always, worried about the impact that anything would have on our public schools. And so that was also the opinion of our district. I had a lot of folks calling, texting, emailing in opposition of this bill. And we did have some that were supporting it, but there just really wasn't a clear pathway that this would, that even any of our constituents would even be able to take advantage of the 10,000 scholarships, the 20,000 scholarships in either way, that they would be able to take advantage of those. So, when I ran on the fact that I would not do anything that would cause damage to public schools. And I also ran on the fact that I would listen to my constituents. And it was such an overwhelming majority that, and then the other concerns I had were, it wasn't as universal as we would have liked to, a voucher bill, you would think it was. It really did seem to just impact those that had private schools already there. So those were the reasons that I ended up voting against it. I felt the need to vote with my district, and being a freshman coming in, it was a pretty hard vote. But I am on the education committee, so moving forward, I will want to make sure that Opportunity Act is implemented in the most successful way it can be.
Well, it's the vote your district, vote your conscience.
That's right.
That's all you can do.
That's all you can do. Yes, ma'am.
I know the bill filing deadline isn't till February 6th, but we're coming right up on it. You filed something called the Caring for Caregivers Act.
Yes.
So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, that's a bill that came to me actually from a young man that's actually from our region, and it's an Alzheimer's bill that caregivers for those patients can have relief on their property tax. That's a rough disease, and it's folks that have dealt with that, and the caregivers end up being a full-time caregiver. And so if they're bringing them to their home and keeping them in their home, this helps the family members be able to get some relief on their property tax. It doesn't have a huge physical note, but it does, I think it will be good for those patients. And this young man is very passionate about it. And his grandfather has this disease, and he has watched the pain and the suffering and knows the way that, it impacts the caregivers. And in fact, I think he quoted a statistic that the caregivers don't last as long as the actual patient does.
Wow.
Because of the demand on their time and their emotions. So it wears folks down quick. So I'm excited about that bill.
And then you also have one filed that has to do with consumer protection.
We just did a caption bill on that one because we weren't sure of what the language was going to look like. But what it does is if you have more than 6 employees, you have to give cash as an option. We have a lot of folks that are wanting to go cashless. And, it just, to me, I think cash is still relevant. I think we need to, my daddy always said if you had your money in your pocket, you could pay for things. If you didn't, you couldn't. So I'm real concerned about the credit debt on our young folks, and because it's so easy. And even for older folks, I've even started using mine more than I used to because I always had the availability to use cash. And so I think that this is one of the reasons that we're doing this, because we've heard about in rural areas about parents that can't even go to their kids' basketball game because they don't have the means to get a credit card, and so they're not accepting cash. So I think it's a concern, and so we're going to try to fix that one.
Just to wrap us up, if you could say anything right now, as we're starting off regular session again, to conservative Tennesseans specifically, what would you say?
I think, that it's very important that we are vocal and that you let your legislators know that you expect them to protect your conservative values, and that you expect us to be your voice here because you can't be here. And that, I just think that's important, that you continue to be vocal and engaged in the legislation and what happens down here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.